Hi there, this is Solitude Films, and welcome to another random review. And today's random review is from the 1987 film Bellman True. This is the lovely Indicator release, spine number 125, which I'll get to shortly. This is a film from 1987. It's British. It's directed by Richard Loncraine, who did a lot of theatre work and has also done a few films, most notably The Missionary with Michael Palin, which is actually coming out on Indicator in August. It was supposed to be a June release, but I think they wanted some extra features or a little bit more time on the restoration. He also did Brimstone and Treacle with Sting and Richard III with Ian McKellen, which is an absolute blast, which is available on BFI Blu-ray. And it tells the story of a man and a boy who get embroiled with a gang of bank robbers to do a job for them, and it's quite fantastic. I do remember when it came out, so I would be about 13, and I'm sure I remember it on Barry Norman's film 87 or something, because I do have a memory of seeing clips of it. I don't think I ever saw it on television. I think it kind of came and went. It's an interesting film back when British films were actually good. Because it starts and it's just this man, Bernard Hill, in just a career best performance. Bernard Hill started off with Boys from the Black Stuff, which was an early 80s drama by Alan Bleasdale about unemployment in Liverpool, and he has done loads of television. He's still working today. He'd also appear, I think he's in Lord of the Rings as well, but he's one of those actors with a great face, full of character, but very rarely gets a lead, and he is a main character, and he's fantastic. The boy is played by a young Kieran O'Brien, who you'll probably recognise the face if you watch British television. He's actually in the Sky Atlantic show Chernobyl at the moment, but he again has had a long and varied career, mostly television, from Cracker with Robbie Coltrane and Coronation Street and kind of everything in between. So at the start we're not told anything, things aren't explained, it's just this man and a boy hiding in hotels, hiding from a man in a suit who's very posh and a slightly rougher guy who want to get their hands on them. So it transpires that Bernard Hill's character is a bit of a computer whiz, and this is really the only bit that kind of ages the film. Obviously computers are huge and the programs are rather basic, but essentially he has a program that has kind of the files for a local bank, and he can decrypt it. So that's why they're wanting him, and they put pressure on him, obviously, because they have his son, which turned out to be stepson. So they coerce him to work on the code and crack the code, and then they realise that perhaps he could actually be useful on the job. So as things transpire, they get a prostitute to come and look after the kid while Bernard Hill is dealing with the gang. The gang in this film is the film is very realistic. It's not stylized particularly. You could argue it's more TV than a movie. It's not very cinematic. It's kind of rough around the edges and it's kind of ugly. But at its core is just a wonderful relationship between a man and his son. But getting back to the gang are more what you would kind of imagine bank robbers to be. They're kind of smart enough to organise a bank robbery, and they have the specialists, the bellman of the title. They have a guy to work out cameras and a guy to work out alarms, and a guy to do the heavy work. So they're smart enough to do that, but they're maybe not the smartest guys. You've got the guy who's in charge, called the governor, who isn't afraid to hand out a bit of punishment. You have the driver. There's a fantastic scene after the robbery involving a Daimler. But if you're fans of Daimler cars, then it might be quite painful to watch. So it's all shot matter-of-factly. If you're used to modern cinema and wham bam thank you ma'am type action, it might be a little bit slow, but it just takes its time. There's actually 2 cuts of the film in the indicator release. There's a 122 minute cut and a 114 minute cut. The 122 is the pre-release version, and then 114 was the one that actually went into cinemas. It's really good, and the robbery has a it's got a unique twist, because most bank robberies, they are afraid of setting off the alarm, whereas in this case they actually decide to set off the alarm a number of times, so the security will become blasé to the fact the alarm's going off. Allegedly a similar ploy happened in the Hatton Garden robbery, and they may have actually used similar techniques that was shown in the film, because it was remarkably similar. The Bellman True actually came from a book that was adapted for the film, and the author had kind of asked people in security whether this was actually how to rob a bank, and it's actually quite close to how to rob a bank. But I think at the heart of the film is the relationship between Bernard Hill and Kieran O'Brien's characters. Bernard Hill's wife and mother of the boy has left, but he hasn't told the boy, and he makes up these kind of fairy stories to tell him, bedtime stories about this princess, which is obviously his wife who's left him, and and he just creates these wonderful stories as a way of hiding the truth from the kid, because it's really a film about, you know, the lies people tell their children to try and protect them, but obviously at some point they find out the truth, and again, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's, even though it's rough around the edges, and obviously Bernard Hill himself is quite a gruff actor, and he does have one of those brilliant gruff faces, but the film does have just a wonderful heart, and it's actually quite moving at the end. And it's got a fantastic ending, which I'm not going to spoil, obviously. So this is the Indicator Blu-ray. It's region B. I would highly recommend you pick it up before it goes out of print. It might not be highly in demand, but I think if more people actually saw the film, they would love it, because it's fantastic. Again, it's perhaps a little bit slow. It perhaps could have used a little bit of trimming, but when you get to its heart, it's a beautiful little film, and it has, you know, as another way of kind of connecting with his stepson, he creates gadgets and makes gadgets for him, which is quite beautiful as well. So this has the 2 cuts. It also has a 24-minute interview with Richard Loncraine, which is very informative and very funny as far as how they made the film and the kind of health and safety that they didn't have back then that they probably should have had. Kieran O'Brien, it's a 20-minute interview with him, and he talks about it. There is a 17-minute interview with the screenwriter and the author, Desmond Loudon, from adapting his own book. There's a 10-minute interview with the composer, Colin Towns. There's a trailer, subtitles, and there is a nice booklet including an essay, an interview with Bernard Hill, and this is limited to 3,000 copies. So like I said, I would highly recommend it. That's a nice image. There's a very young Richard Loncraine, which is obviously quite hard to say. And again, it's a nice indicator booklet. Yeah, so Bellman True actually comes from a 19th century Cumbrian song, apparently. Don't ask me, I only work here. Yeah, I mean, it's got action. There's a wonderful scene where the governor persuades Bernard Hill to carry on with working out the plans for the robbery by persuading him by using a shotgun and a part of his anatomy. Yeah, so the cast, the characters are pretty much called Governor, the Boy, the Donkey, the Peterman, the Wheelman, and the Bellman, as far as the gang. And there'll be, for any viewers in the UK, there will be familiar faces that pop up from television in British films. So I would highly recommend the film, and I would highly recommend picking up the Indicator release, because it's a beautiful film. Again, even though it's perhaps not framed cinematically and it's not pristine, it's rough around the edges, but that kind of gives it its charm. And like I say, it's got a golden heart, and you know, the relationship between fathers and sons, and expressing how they feel about each other is difficult, and in films it's difficult, but this really achieves it very well, and I would highly recommend it. And it's hard to believe it's now 32 years old. 32 years old, sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. 32 years old. It's fantastic. Bellman True. So let me know in the comments below if you've seen this film, what you thought of it. And hopefully we'll see you again for another video, another random review. So this is Solitude Ronan saying thank you very much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you again.